I am joined in the Coach Sean Fitness Studio quarter through Zoom by my good friend and co-host of the Any Given Runday podcast, Mr. Conor Nolan. Conor, how are we getting on?
Very well, Sean. It feels good to be referred to as a co-host. It often feels like, it's the Coach Sean, show on Any Given Runday, and then there's the Three Stooges then behind. So it's nice to feel like a co-host. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Man, as that came out of my mouth, I was like, that sounds way too professional for me right now. I was very proud how I did that intro. So we were really just talking before, right before I started hitting recording the podcast. One of the reasons that I have you on is, for those that don't know or don't listen to the Any Given Runday podcast, Conor trains with a hurling team out in Maynooth. And we were talking in the podcast last week about how we're getting on with our runs and all the rest. And Conor was mentioning that he's still going through his training with the GAA team, and he still gets sent out X, Y, and Z to do by the training squad. And I was like, well, geez, it must be very lenient and stuff like that because, we don't know when the GAA season is going to start. Like, it came up today on my RTE News app that, inter-county football might be to at least the start of July, and we're recording this midway through April. We're a month or so into this quarantine, and throughout the entire month, Conor's been getting different training plans, and he said that the team are following them. I was very interested in hearing more about that, and not being a GAA head. I haven't played GAA in a good 10, 15 years, and I wasn't all that good back then either. So, it was a running podcast, so we had to divert the conversation more towards running. So I was just personally interested. Conor, can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I suppose, look, even just to take it back a step, so like Sean kind of alluded to, and we would have discussed this in, with Any Given Runday. So I play with Maynooth GAA, so we hurl in Kildare Hurling Championship. For us, we play in the intermediate division, which is Division 2. That's where our first team plays. So that's my club. I would have been fortunate to represent my college and county over the years as well, but I play my trade now exclusively with my club. I suppose in terms of our season to date, so we went back and began our pre-season at the end of January. Began, I suppose, with a strength conditioning program and endurance more so than ball work initially. And our sessions would have been 3 times a week, one gym, one field, and then either a field session or a match of the weekend. And that would have continued up until obviously when the news came through from the GAA that obviously all hurling activities were suspended, which threw a spanner into our works. We were about to kind of initiate phase 2 of our pre-season or kind of our seasonal training program. So I suppose over the last couple of weeks, what's happened is our plans have been distilled into kind of 4 sessions. We're given those and they're tailored to certain groups depending on how we would have performed in our fitness test earlier on this year. So there's a blue, a green, and a red group. And essentially each program or each of the 4 has kind of 4 elements: a warm up and a warm down being, the ones that kind of bookend the program. There's then kind of an endurance run, and for us, what we do mass runs, so maximal aerobic speed. And then there's usually kind of a circuit to finish off, and that may be aerobic or anaerobic depending on the distance or the difficulty of the runs prior to that. So that's kind of how our sessions look at the moment. Is it difficult? Yeah, absolutely. It's very, very different to what we would have experienced before. Obviously, we're all isolated in our own rights. I'm based out in Dublin City at the moment, so more so than the lads who are in Maynooth. And there's a lot of, I suppose, trust involved to make sure the lads are, obviously doing their sessions. We do that by using the WhatsApp group. So, and we all have fitness trackers. So our sessions are tracked by ourselves and posted to the group for that little bit of accountability. But I think it, even more so than that, it's less about accountability and more that obviously, even though we're not all together, the plan stays the same. We're still focused on championship whenever that comes around, whether it's in July, August, September, or whenever and whatever that looks like,
That's a lot of commitment. So it's all basically running, depending on your previous fitness levels and positions. Or when you said circuit, are you doing bodyweight exercise at that, or how is that working?
Yeah, so look, I suppose like every other strength and conditioning coach in the country, you're kind of trying to tailor programs on the basis of what equipment people have. So I'm very fortunate. I have a good friend who's a PT who ensured that I was able to get a few pieces of equipment before this lockdown was implemented.
Sounds like a hell of a guy.
Hell of a guy, yeah. He's a crap podcast host, but anyway.
That's why he's got 3 co-hosts, I imagine, on another podcast.
So I suppose the way our sessions work, and I suppose first and foremost, so when I talk about groupings, at the beginning of the year we basically did a fitness test, and from that we were put into groups and our runs tailored accordingly. So look, it's unfair to assume that someone who may be on the periphery of the first team is going to be able to may not have the same fitness level or skill level as someone who's who's playing with the county as well, is going to be able to do the same type of runs. So what we've done even before this kind of lockdown was implemented was, for our mass runs, there was, kind of 3 distances. So depending on what level of fitness you're in, you adhere to that distance. And I suppose coming back now to what we're doing at the moment, in the same way when our plan is released at the start of the week, and you look at the mass runs that are allocated, the distances correspond to whatever group you're in and whatever fitness level you have. And that's obviously, I suppose, over the course of that first phase of pre-season, the groups went from 3 to 2, because obviously the hope is that those who are in the lower group get fitter, and that's what we've seen as well. But certainly, yeah, there's a lot of commitment involved. Yeah, I think, even in some cases, guys are training maybe even harder than before.
Well, I mean, the commitment for you guys, it goes from what? Your season started in January, but am I right in saying your last game was November or at least October?
Last year, so I suppose going off last year, our last game was in October. It was the week before the Dublin Marathon, so that would have been 21st, 22nd of October, something like that. Yeah, it's quite late.
You barely 2 months off, and you're right back at it again. I suppose that's just the way it is. You go work right through the summer, so you're. We talked about it in the Any Given Runday podcast, so we won't touch drinking bans in this one. But are you expecting now? Not expected, but would you predict now, like the summer, all the games be batched in together, and summer holidays out the window and all the rest, or is that way too far thinking right now?
I think, I suppose this kind
of. Or is that always the case for you?
Well, look, I think that's. So first and foremost, we look at the moment. I think for anyone to think that they're getting a summer holiday this year is really ambitious.
That's true.
I don't look. I think you can. It depends who you speak to, but I think we're looking at a kind of a long kind of a lead into any kind of normality. So look, I think for us, what would be ideal is that we get back towards the middle or end of the summer. When the weather's still good, ground is dry, and basically play off as many games as possible. I think that timeline keeps guys engaged. A little bit more so than I suppose just simply a hunch. But at the end of the day, like even last year, for example, there's an understanding and commitment from the team that during the summer, that's our core championship season. It's not really when you want to be taking holidays. And look, I think people get bogged down into this idea that, you can't take holidays. It's that you don't want to,
right.
We have a singular goal, and that's to win championship. That's to be promoted, and that's to be a senior club next year. That was the goal last year. That's the goal this year. And it's a united group of 40 plus players and a team of management that are all working in that way. So, it's pretty simple. I mean, people talk about it's a big commitment, and well, yeah, it is. But we enjoy it.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Like I was saying right before the podcast, I'm trying to keep these just nice and short, little things. And I'm definitely gonna I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm gonna ring you up every couple of weeks and like, here, we're gonna shoot shit, have the crack, and then we'll record our 10, 15 minute ones of these. But I would be remiss in this podcast without asking a question on GAA hurling and fitness. With, I suppose, myself in the running. And myself in general, I always talk about a foundation of strength. And you mentioned strength and conditioning coaching. Over the last couple of years, have you seen because it looks like to me there's been a lot more of an emphasis on strength conditioning and gym work, and maybe because I'm a fair weather fan of GAA and seeing the Dublin team, they seem to have a lot of their focus is on strength conditioning. Are you seeing it yourself, or am I reading too much into it?
No,
They look
you're.
bigger, the players, like.
Say again.
The players look bigger and fitter than they ever did before.
Absolutely. Look, I think, looking bigger and fitter than ever before. I think, obviously you've seen advances and kind of, new techniques in terms of nutrition and strength conditioning. There was a period of time, probably early noughties, where, or late noughties, kind of early, 2010, 2011, then, where players got exceptionally big, and the emphasis was very much on the weight room, and I think that kind of mentality has died down again. I think players are more focused now on kind of being a well-rounded player, playing to your strengths, and I suppose, and not, and not kind of implementing a one-size-fits-all. And that's, certainly I go back to my own experience with our own club. The way our sessions are all structured, it's, it is very much to suit the individual, and there's not an expectation that someone who's going to bench or squat, a certain amount of weight, is then going to be able to, to run a similar distance or same distance as someone who, is a marathon runner, or vice versa. Everything is very much done on kind of a case by case basis. And I think that what we're seeing at the intercounty level is that, look, certainly in comparison to 40, 50 years ago, there's a significant difference. But diet is different, training techniques are different as well. I think that what the vast majority of people are looking to do is find that edge, whether that's in tactics, whether that's in conditioning, and basically exploit that. So I don't think there's still the same. When you talk about guys look bigger, it's not from a vanity standpoint, but at the end of the day, guys want to be stronger than their opponents. They want to be faster than their opponents. They want to be better footballers, hurlers than their opponents.
And that strength program is put into your program now. Would that be one last question? Would you get a strength program from Minute, particularly? Or would you guys work together? You all work together in gym or something like that, or do circuit trainings? You all do that. That's more of an emphasis now. Your programming.
Exactly, yeah. So I suppose from a strength conditioning standpoint, our sessions would have been one night which was focused on kind of HIIT sessions, and then we would have implemented certain strength conditioning exercises into our training sessions, then usually to push for fatigue, and then train something technical then afterwards. But I think outside of those 2-3 sessions a week, there's an expectation that guys are monitoring their diet, that they're doing whatever gym work that they feel they need to do to improve themselves, because ultimately that's the end goal, is to throughout the course of the season improve yourself to then improve the team, and I think there's an understanding and respect and a trust there that guys will do whatever it takes, legally.
Catch yourself there in that one.
be the best they can be, yeah.
Because I can't end it on that point. You touched on something.
Armstrong-esque, doesn't it?
It did. I thought we were going to have the GAA version of Icarus going on there for a second. You touched on there, you guys hit the gym and you work to almost fatigue, and then you do ball skills. Can you quickly talk about why you do that? Because I don't know the answer, but just quickly talk about that.
I suppose, look, in any kind of a match situation, there's going to be a point in the match where you are fatigued, and running on empty. Hurling is a very technical sport, and it's not just a case of being able to cover distance. You have to be able to perform the skill, whether it's lifting a ball, catching a ball, striking, tackling, whatever. So, a lot of what we do in a group setting is to work to fatigue, and then work on a technical skill. And that might be something like after our runs, during our so-called rest periods, we're passing a ball to each other, we're moving, we're looking for a pass. So everything's tailored towards match situation. Obviously it's a bit different now, but in the same way, for example, what I would do is when I finish my circuit, or when I have a rest period, I might take a schlitter or a tennis ball or something, and I'll come up close to the wall and I'll kind of hand pass it quickly to myself and look to take a pass. Or I'll do some basic striking, left and right, again just working that technical skill, when I'm fatigued and under pressure.
Brilliant. Cheers. Thank you very much for being the very first guest on the Coach Sean Fitness Podcast. After, I think this is episode 24. I have episode 24. Be online later this week. I'll let you know then. But anyway, thank you very much for being on the podcast today, Conor. That is Conor. You can find him on Instagram at Any Given Runday Official, because he is a co-host, of course.
Very proud co-host.
Any parting words before the end of the podcast?
No, just feel free to like, share, comment, and make sure to subscribe to Coach Sean.
Thank you very much for that seal of approval. Cheers, guys. Thank you for listening to the podcast from the two of us. Take care. Now, that wasn't a hard video to get through now, was it? I hope you guys got some value out of the video. If you did, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe to Coach Sean's channel, which is somewhere here. Hit that button, subscribe to Coach Sean's channel, leave a thumbs up. There should be a couple of other videos around here for you guys to check out. And that's all from me, from Coach Sean. Take care.